Death is a master from Germany. His eye is blue. He strikes you with lead bullets. His aim is true. A man lives in the house. Your golden hair, Marguerite. He sets his dogs on us. He gives us a grave in the air. He plays with the snakes and dreams. Death is a master from Germany. Your golden hair, Marguerite. Your ashen hair, Shulamith. These are the final lines of the poem Death Fugue, written by the Romanian French-Jewish poet Paul Celan, which reverberate through my mind whenever I watch Ilham Klimov's incomparable 1985 film, Come and See. In the film, Death is very much a master from Germany and is one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse in the biblical passage from which the film takes its name. And I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, as it were the noise of thunder, one of the 4 beasts saying, Come and see. And I saw and behold a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given unto him, and he went forth conquering and to conquer. Perhaps the greatest anti-war film of all time, come and see is to cinema what Picasso's Guernica is to painting, an unrelenting, desolate howl. Originally called Kill Hitler, the film does indeed ask us to come and see and bear witness to the unrelenting horror which unfolds across its 2 hours and 22-minute running time. In Come and See, as proclaimed by Ariel in Shakespeare's play The Tempest, hell is empty and all the devils are here. The director Klimov once said of the film, I understood that this would be a very brutal film and that it was unlikely that people would be able to watch it. I told this to my screenplay co-author, the writer Aleš Adamovich, but he replied, let them not watch it then. This is something we must leave after us, as an evidence of war and as a plea for peace. Made in 1985, during the Glasnost years of Mikhail Gorbachev, often referred to as the Soviet Thaw, in which there was a loosening of censorship, the film is reflective of the newly acquired artistic freedom of the time. As traced by Mark Lefanu, though Klimov rose to a position of power and influence in the wake of Gorbachev's reforms, in 1986 for example, he was appointed head of the USSR's Filmmakers Union, there is something melancholy and incomplete, something tragic even, about his career taken as a whole. In essence, there were only 3 films of stature, and one of these, Farewell, in 1983, belongs equally, perhaps, in the filmography of his wife, Larissa Sheptiko, whose project it had originally been before she was killed in a car crash. Before this, whilst nothing new for a Soviet film, the production of Come and See was dogged by state censorship. This included the insistence that Klimov rename the film from Kill Hitler, as any mention of Hitler, let alone in a title, was far too egregious. In addition, filming was unable to start for 8 years because the State Committee for Cinematography, otherwise known as Goskino, would not accept the screenplay, considering it too realistic, calling it propaganda for the aesthetics of dirtiness and naturalism. Yet, it is precisely within this naturalism and aesthetics of dirtiness that the power of Come and See lies. From its frequent sonic overloads and abstract soundtrack, to its fluid and arresting Steadicam cinematography. Throughout the film, there is a total commitment to authenticity, to showing the horror of the real, which at times tilts into the absurd. From the firing of real ammunition to the real killing of animals on screen, whilst the lead Alexei Kravchenko, then a non-professional actor, appears to age in real time as the barbaric events of the film take their immense physical and psychological toll. Come and See is part of a rich tradition of lyrical and impressionistic Soviet war films, including The Cranes Are Flying by Mikhail Kalatozov, The Ascent, which was made by Klimov's wife Laryska Sheptiko, and Ivan's Childhood by Andrei Tarkovsky. Like Tarkovsky's film, Klimov's Come and See centers on a young boy, barely a teenager, attempting to navigate the maelstrom of the abject. Moreover, it is easy to see Ivan's childhood's influence on Come and See, not only on a superficial level, i.e., a young boy robbed of innocence and tuned up by the barbarism of Nazism, but a shared emphasis on the real. In both films, this is best exemplified during their endings, where we get a jarring yet powerful incorporation of archival footage. In turn, both films ask, where does the fictitious end and the real begin? Will we ever learn from such barbarity? Is this all modernity has to offer? Arguably, both films and the events they depict do seem to give credence to Fyodor Adorno's claim, no progress or universal history leads from savagery to humanitarianism, but there is one leading from the slingshot to the atomic bomb. Moreover, as traced by Lloyd Michaels, as was the case in Tarkovsky's Ivan's Childhood, the revolutionary ideology of the conventional Soviet war film gives way to a more general horror at the sacrifice, while the indomitable fighting spirit of the partisans colours the closing scene, promising revenge against the demonic enemy portrayed throughout the massacre. Come and See hardly inspires patriotic fever at the triumph of the virtuous proletariat. Frequently banned and out of favour with Goskino, Klimov was already strongly identified with the dissident movement, along with his co-scenarist Ales Adamovich. After languishing so long on the shelf, this was Klimov's moment. He had recently completed his wife Sheptiko's film Farewell, which sharply criticised the government's construction of a hydroelectric dam in Siberia and the resulting environmental and social upheaval. Whilst drawing upon real historical events, such as the massacre of Katyn, the film equally draws upon the childhoods and lived experiences of the director Klimov and the co-screenwriter Ales Adamovich. Adamovich fought as a teenage partisan, as recounted in his novel Katyn, and the 1977 memoir I Am from the Fiery Village, which forms the basis of the film. Meanwhile, as a child, Klimov escaped the Battle of Stalingrad, in which over 1.2 million were killed on a makeshift raft. He recounted, "The city was ablaze up to the top of the sky. The river was also burning. It was night, bombs were exploding, and mothers were covering their children with whatever bedding they had, and then they would lie on top of them. Had I included everything I knew and shown the whole truth in Come and See, even I could not have watched it." This notion of survival and the destruction of innocence is the hinge upon which the film swings. We see its corruption, destruction, and protection throughout. At the beginning of the film, Flora and a friend place soldiers amongst some sand dunes where they find a gun. Yet, before long, there is the imposition of a warplane above. There is, of course, the memorable sequence after the bombing of the forest, in which Flora and Glacier appear to inhabit an Eden far from the barbarity of violence. But as always in the film, it is a state of innocence undercut from the very beginning, with Flora accidentally trampling on the unhatched bird eggs whilst an unsettling drone plays over Glacier's dance. As recounted by Fanu, Flora builds the girl a little fern and pine shelter and snuggles down beside her. A crane that seems to have stepped out of a book of fairy tale stories pokes its inquisitive beak into their improvised shelter and surveys them. Later that afternoon, in the pouring rain, Glacier performs a dance on an upturned suitcase that Flora will remember to the end of his days. He and she will never again experience such unmediated delight in life, though they are destined to be parted from each other. After extraordinary trials and exertions, their singular fate is sealed in that moment. From now on, they belong to each other. Flora and Glacier are destined to lose each other too. They are only children, orphans of the storm, but what they are about to go through should never be experienced by any human being. How can such horrors happen? The viewer asks themselves. Klimov seems to have been intent on attaching a level of physical realism to the story at hand that had seldom been attempted before, even in the harsh annals of Soviet cinema. Notably, in the sequence at the end of the film, Klimov's thesis on innocence reaches its zenith, with Flora ultimately deciding not to kill baby Hitler after firing his rifle for the very first time in the film. Despite the abjection and violence he had been subjected to and witnessed, he still affords baby Hitler the right and opportunity of innocence, which was taken from him. In the 1972 preface to Deleuze and Guattari's book Anti-Oedipus, the French philosopher Michel Foucault had pertinently written of the imperative to fight against not only historical fascism, the fascism of Hitler and Mussolini, which was able to mobilize and use the desire of the masses so effectively, but also the fascism in us all, in our heads and in our everyday behavior, the fascism that causes us to love power, to desire the very thing that dominates and exploits us. Flora, despite it all then, refuses to become a fascist, to kill a baby no matter what it will grow up to be. In turn, Flora denies the Hitler within himself through this symbolic act. For a film so bereft of any heroism typically associated with the war film, this moment is the closest we get to catharsis. The flame of fascism, for now at least, is snuffed out.
Ушли. Да ты садись, садись.
As previously mentioned, the film mainly consists of Steadicam cinematography in which the camera appears to glide.
A long time ago, in a world far before low-cost gimbals were a thing, there were only a handful of options when it came to moving cameras with a cinematic stability. You could put a camera on a dolly, you could put a camera on a crane, which are both great options, but what about if you wanted to do this shot? How do you chase a character over uneven ground through twists and turns at a low angle for an extended stabilized take? The answer was with a piece of stabilizing equipment invented by Garrett Brown called the Steadicam that could attach a camera to an operator, giving filmmakers the mobility of a handheld camera combined with a cinematic stability.
In the film, the Steadicam both engrosses us and forces us to inhabit a deeply grounded and subjective point of view. We are placed, as it were, in the perspective of Walter Benjamin's angel of history, a disembodied witness forced to watch and move through time and the apocalyptic landscapes of Belarusia as ruins, bodies, and terror pile up behind us. Whilst Flora appears to turn back time at the end of the film, such a powerful move is ultimately futile. History cannot be undone. The horror of the real remains. Time's arrow continues its march forward through a darkening forest at the end of the film. Additionally, throughout, the cinematographer Alexei Rodionov makes extensive use of split diopter filters, which allows for two planes of focus, as explained in this clip.
A faint sound of a whistle is heard from a distance. The boy turns around to see a young girl limping toward him, covered in blood with a whistle in her mouth. Once the girl stops moving, the two blankly stare at each other, their eyes lacking soul, emotionless and static.
Любить. Рожать.
As the boy murmurs a cryptic phrase and turns around to join the others, we see this. The most noteworthy aspect of this shot is its use of a split diopter lens, a piece of half-convex glass that can be attached to the main lens of the camera to create an illusion of a deep focus. This basically means that both Fiora and the girl will be in focus despite their distance from the camera. Because this isn't how objects are normally seen, many films try to cover the out-of-focus boundaries between the two subjects to make the image seem more natural. However, in Come and See, the blurred space is never hidden. If anything, it's emphasized. This amplifies the strangeness of the image and creates a strong sense of unease in the viewers. Split diopter shots also connect the subjects that are in focus by, well, keeping them both in focus. By revealing the girl through a slow pan, the film links the boy's state of mind with hers, suggesting that the nature of the two characters' trauma is essentially identical. This is why in the preceding shots, the camera captured each character as if they were facing one another, when in fact they were most likely separated. It's a cinematic depiction of their situational connection and their physical disconnection. Neither Fiora nor the girl are able to process the shared traumatic events that befell them. In short, they are alone, together.
This use of a split diopter short-circuits any need to cut to reaction shots and allows for the uncanny compression of two faces and places within the same shot. Whilst documenting so much terror, the camera fixates on faces and heads throughout. From the opening frame where we get a Tarkovskian nape shot, to the countless close-ups on faces, Come and See powerfully grounds its action in the looks and gazes of its characters. For Michaels, at the end of the film, when Flora shoots Hitler's portrait, in this look back to the camera, we as an audience are confronted by not simply the ravaged face of a child grown old before our eyes, but the simultaneous alignment, the space of filming, and the space we occupy. We are implicated in the tragedy. Flora stares not at the bullet-ridden image of Hitler, but at us. His piercing gaze sees us. After Come and See, Elem Klimov would never make another film, feeling that he had said everything he could say in the medium. Yet, the film stands as a unique and towering testament, the pinnacle of a filmmaking career, a defiant stand against the crimes of the past and the future.